Urban Decay has just released their newest Moondust Quad, so we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a deep dive. Currently, this is listed as only being available at Sephora, and I haven't heard if or when it's going to become more widely available. You get 4 shades inside, and it retails for $39. Now, typically, each of their Moondust shadows retails for $24 when purchased individually, but you do get more product in that one individual pan. If you're someone who wanted to try out the Moondust formula, this could be a good option. But I do want to mention that oftentimes they have multiple versions of these palettes come out at different retailers. I haven't seen any sneak peeks for those as of yet. Now, I gotta say, I was a little bit intrigued about this palette because it's quite different than previous years. I feel like most of the time they include Space Cowboy in these quads, so in this quad we don't have that, and we have kind of a different colorway. In this palette you're getting a lilac tone. I haven't seen a shade like that in previous palettes, maybe one in the far past. As with previous palettes, the shade names are listed on the back in smaller print, and the component itself looks the same as last year's. The first shade in the quad is called Cosmic Quartz. This is a sparkly white shade, and it also has some pink and green reflect. And I do think that you can probably appreciate that reflect when you see it swatched on my hand. Now, I would say that in respect to other Moondust shadows, this is definitely one that would fall under the category of sparkly topper. They often have a variety of textures that's included in the palette, including shades that are a little bit less topper-like and even some satins. This is definitely one of the more sparkly shades that's included in the palette. You get what I would consider to be a medium particle size. And typically I do get some fallout with Moondust shadows when worn over the course of a day. I would recommend using some type of tacky primer. When you see Cosmic Quartz on the eye, you can't really see the pink and the green, but I do think it makes it a little bit more dimensional. In this shot, I just wanted to show you a comparison of Cosmic Quartz with Cosmic. Cosmic Quartz is on top and Cosmic is underneath. I think you can see that Cosmic does not have the pink and the green sparkle in it. It's kind of just a straight up icy white sparkle. Other than that, I would say these are very similar shades in texture and finish. Cosmic Quartz is maybe just a little bit more opaque. Okay, the next shade we have in the palette is called Solar Drip, and this shade I would say is the most different from other Moondusts I've seen in the past. I would describe this as an iridescent chrome shadow. When I swatched it on my hand, I saw orange and red and yellow and a hint of green. And it's definitely fun to see Urban Decay playing around with chrome Moondust shadows. As you can see when I apply it, it's not very intense. You do have to build it up for your desired opacity. This is definitely probably the least sparkly shade in the palette, but that might be considered a good thing if you were to use this shade as a highlighting shade, especially if you wanted to use it as a face highlight. When you build it up, you definitely get a pretty glow with this shade. Now, is this the most intense chrome iridescent I've tried or even tried at Sephora? No. But it is fun to see Urban Decay playing around with some new formulas and including those in these little Moondust palettes. Okay, the next shade we have is called Starry Haze, and I feel like this shade is going to be a lot of people's favorite shade in the palette. It's a lilac Moondust. And maybe Urban Decay has done a lilac before, but not that I've ever tried or been aware of. I feel like in terms of formula, this is probably most similar to the shade Cosmic Quartz. But you do get more base pigment with this shade, and you have a silvery reflect throughout. This is definitely my own personal favorite shade in the palette. I feel like it applies very beautifully. It looks glowy and sparkly on the lid. And I just really like when we get some more interesting shades in the Moondust line. Also, I feel like in general, these palettes have included more warm tones than cool tones, so it's nice to see something a little bit different in that way. With the silver reflect in it, I was a little bit worried that the shade was going to look too similar to Cosmic Quartz on the eye. I think maybe I would have preferred it to look a little more purple, but it's still a pretty shade. Okay, the last shade we get in the palette is called Rock Solid. I would describe this shade as a pinky red. In terms of its sparkle level, I would say that it's somewhere between Cosmic Quartz and Solar Drip. It's not as sparkly as Cosmic Quartz, but it's definitely more sparkly than Solar Drip. In the swatch on my hand, you can see that you have some pretty multicolored reflex, including silver, green, purple, and pinky red. This is another shade where I feel like we haven't got anything too similar in the past, at least not in recent years that I was able to find. When you see Rock Solid on the eye, you can see how the sparkle differs from a shade like Starry Haze. And for the sake of comparison, I just wanted to do some swatches of some shades from previous palettes. The shade that I found that was most similar was Cowgirl Warrior, and that is from the Galactic Cowgirl palette. Cowgirl Warrior is quite a bit more warm toned and I would say more opaque, less kind of topper-like. You can see less sparkle overall in Cowgirl Warrior, but the reflex in the shade are similar. The other three shades really are quite different in my opinion. They have more champagne. For other Moondust nerds, Galactic Cowgirl as a palette did have a few more cool tones in comparison to the other Moondust palettes, that is. Okay, now we're gonna get into creating a couple of looks using the palette. I'm starting off with one of the Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On eye pencils, and this is the shade LSD. I absolutely adore these pencils. I like that you get some playtime. One of my favorite things to do is using these as a base for eyeshadow. So I'm just using this shade to map out a halo. It doesn't have to be perfect when you place it onto the eye because you're going to blend it out with your brush. I would recommend doing one portion of the eye at a time just to avoid the liner setting down before it's blended out. I'm placing that same shade on the lower lash line and just underneath the lower lash line, and I also blended that out. And then I'm taking Cosmic Quartz and I'm placing it into the center of the lid. Before this step, I did use a little bit of a tacky primer. And like I said before, I do recommend it with this formula. Now I'm taking the shade Solar Drip and I'm placing it onto the brow bone, and I'm just trying to build up the intensity a little bit. I was a little bit disappointed that you have to build this shade up quite a bit to get it to show up as a brow bone highlight. This is my first completed look. Easy and impactful. For my second look, I wanted to focus on only using the shimmers in the palette. I put down a primer and then I took Cosmic Quartz on the inner portion of the lid. Then I took the shade Starry Haze and I put it onto the middle portion of the lid. This is what I mean. I wish the shade just had a little bit more purple. When it's right next to Cosmic Quartz, it just looks maybe a little bit too similar. In my opinion, like I really would have loved to have something a bit more purple. In the outer corner, I used a brush to apply Rock Solid. I just wanted to have a little bit more precision with this shade, and I thought it applied well with a brush. Then I put Solar Drip on the inner corner and the brow bone. I was inspired to do this look because I saw on the Urban Decay Instagram page, they showed a look where they were using either 3 or all 4 shades. Here is my second completed look. It is a little bit more on the softer side because you don't have any deep shades in the palette. Okay, now that we've had a chance to do some detailed swatches, some eye swatches, and a couple of looks, let's close up with some wrap-up thoughts. I definitely like the concept of these little Moondust quads. I feel like it's a good opportunity to try the formula for a more reasonable price point, especially since each individual Moondust shadow costs $24. I do feel like the tones in here are quite soft, and you do have to like cool tones because this strictly is a cool tone palette. I do feel like the promo pics online for this palette just don't really do it any justice. Personally, I feel like the promo pics actually make these shadows look dull, which of course they're not. Now, are there more sparkly shadows at Sephora and Ulta? Yes. Have these shadows evolved over time? I would say not enough. I feel like we are due for a time where Moondust shadows are giving us more punch. Now, Urban Decay has been playing around with some new formulas when it comes to liquid shadows. They did also some other shadow sticks. But at this point, I would still say that the Moondust shadows are the most sparkly shadows that Urban Decay makes. Now, when I saw this release sneak peeked on Trendmood, I did see that there are some Moondust sticks. So I'm definitely very intrigued to know how those are going to stack up next to these pressed Moondust shades. But as of yet, those have not been released. Now, to look at this palette as a whole, do I think that we get some interesting shades in here? Yes. I do like to see that we have something a little bit different, and also I like that we don't have Space Cowboy included in the palette because I feel like it's been included in so many other palettes. I feel like in terms of the shades themselves, there should have been a little bit more range and depth, but if you're not going to use this palette as a standalone palette, it probably doesn't matter. Personally, I think a lot of people would have really loved to see Urban Decay release the Iced Out palette, the kind of blue color story that came out as a China exclusive earlier this year. And maybe if they continue to hear that feedback, they will, but I don't know. Now that we've had a chance to do a deep dive, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. I do have a dedicated video where I'm swatching all of my Moondust shadows, so I'm going to go ahead and link that in the cards. As always, I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.